Hey there, this is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com. And in this video, I'm going to be recreating the beat you can hear in Sam Smith's Diamonds. I'm also going to be sharing some music production tips along the way. So first, let me show you the finished product. So let's start by focusing in on the drums. So I have a drum rack here loaded with some samples in Ableton Live, and as well as a plugin in which we're going to be using to generate the kick. So aside from just dragging and dropping samples into the drum rack, you can also drag and drop instruments and plugins. So here we have for the kick drum, I'm using the Big Kick plugin. It's a great plugin to use to really just go in depth in generating a kick that you would like to use in your projects. So you have many different options. You can actually just shape the overall kick by changing any of the parameters here on the body. You can also layer it. And there's a couple of things that we'll get into in a second. So let's start by drawing in our pattern. I'm going to do this by selecting this empty clip in the clip slot here under the drum rack. And I'm going to hit the letter B on my computer keyboard to change my cursor to the pencil tool. That's going to allow me to just draw in depending on the grid settings that we're at. So click and drag to the right. And now let's audition that. And let's go ahead and put our snare drum on beat 2 and 4 of each bar. And then I'm also going to be layering that snare drum. So I'm going to hold the Option key while selecting all those snare drums and dragging down to a snare sample that we also have. But we're also going to be nudging the second snare sample slightly over to the right. So just hold the Command key and move that over so it's just slightly off grid. And just to balance this out, I'll bring down the volume of the old snare. Let's see what it sounds like, maybe nudging this a little bit ahead. I like that one better. It seems to be a bit tighter. Now, I want to go ahead and layer this kick drum with another kick drum. So as we are here with the big kick, we can open this up and crank up the volume of the layer sample that comes with this plugin. And what's cool is that if I wanted just some more beef or more bottom or some more decay, I can simply just go ahead and do that with the parameter, changing the parameters here on the plugin, rather than maybe cycling through another kick drum that might have some more decay to it. So that's why I'm using the Big Kick plugin in this instance. But you can also just find samples that have the lengthy amount of decay that you're looking for as well. I want it short, but a little bit beefy on the bottom end. And then we'll use an EQ on this kick to just actually take away some of the high end here. Now, next, I'm going to layer that pattern with the drum rack with a drum loop. So here's the drum loop that we're going to be using. And there's just some texture there that will feel really cool on top of the beat that we already have. And that drum loop adds a great layer and texture to it. But what I want to do is head over here to my envelope window and choose clip. And we are going to eliminate certain things or actually lower the volume of this clap here. So what I'm going to do is just take this clap and lower that in volume. And I'll do the same thing here. And I'll lower that in volume. And you notice that the clap is actually off as well, right? And that's good. That's what adds to the texture. And that's cool because then what happens is our main snare drum becomes more in the spotlight rather than the claps in this loop. We have a little bit of that backwards thing happening here. That's because the warping algorithm is set to beats. So I'm going to go from beats to repitch. And that's repitching the audio loop so that it's actually in sync with the tempo. And so it'll pitch it down so that it fits right with the tempo. I actually like the texture that it has now in repitch, and that's cool. Next, I want to add a little bit of EQing and some sidechain compression. And the sidechain compression, the reason why I'm going to that and using that is because I want to create a little bit of that pushback. I want like the beat to feel a little bit behind that, and that's a big part of adding the groove, and that's what makes the drums just feel really good and locks into a really good pocket. So let's go and grab our EQ8. There's not a there's really not a lot of low end to begin with, so seems to be fine. And then let's go ahead and add that sidechain compression. So click this and hit the sidechain button, and then choose what is going to be the source of the sidechain. What is it that you want to cause the loop to duck? So in this case, it's going to be the drum rack, kick, and it will be post mixer. I can crank up the gain here to send more of that audio, more of that kick to the compressor, and then just lower the threshold. Right. So here's the difference. Without it, you almost feel like the loop is just a little bit behind, and technically it is. Right. It's just ducking out of the way. And if I wanted to exaggerate a little bit more, I can give it a little bit more release so it just takes its time to get back up. Next, I want to add some hi-hats. And this is more of like an acoustic kit hi-hat pattern. So for that, I'm going to be using Addictive Drums 2, and I have it set to the Fairfax Volume 1. And we'll go to the kit here, and this is the hi-hat we're going to be using. So let's go ahead and draw the pattern. Now, when using hi-hats with this particular plugin and other acoustic drum plugins, it's really important that it's not going to be treated as maybe a one sample hi-hat that you would maybe use in a drum rack, because there's multiple nuances here with this hi-hat. For instance, we have that hi-hat sample, and we also have when the hi-hat's, that's a closed hi-hat, and that's when it's open. So if I were to just draw in 16th notes like this and play it, let's just solo the hi-hat here. It's too stiff. And so there's a couple things we need to incorporate. A, velocity, and B, multiple samples, right? So let's go ahead and start by shifting our velocity. So I'm going to click this and make that first one accented, meaning that it's going to sound a little bit louder, and then we'll lower the velocity on the second one. So you can see that it actually gives a little bit more life with the lower velocity there. And we'll lower this one a little bit, and this one as well, and accent the downbeat. Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll take the second hi-hat and find another. So we'll move it to that one, and then possibly use this one here. So you hear the difference between this bar and the second one. You see how this one just seems too robotic and stiff. So let's go ahead and copy this over. Duplicate that over. So with that in mind, here's a new hi-hat pattern. And I'm going to pan this slightly to the right. And I'm going to add some overdrive, some harmonic distortion. And let's EQ this. And brighten this up just a little bit. And then I'll take the sidechain that we added to the loop, just hold Option and drag that over. And this will also cause that ducking vibe as well. See what it sounds like with everybody else. And let's also add a shaker loop as well. I'm going to lower it down in volume. And now grouping all these tracks together, this is hitting Command G. Let's go ahead and add some processing to all these. So I'm going to start with using the Ableton Live drum bus, because I want to give some drive, some crunch, maybe dampen, make it a little bit warmer. So let's go ahead and hear what we have so far. And I'm going to just scale the dry and wet. So maybe scale this 50%. Then go back in here and just balance things out a little bit. And then we're going to use the Ableton Live glue compressor. So I'll put this here and just kind of give a nice overall balance in the dynamics. And then I'm going to EQ afterwards. Now, for the bass, I'm going to be using IK Multimedia's Moto Bass. Going to be using the 70s J bass preset here. And under the playstyle, we're going to be using a finger. And I have got the muting way up around this range here and just added some detach and slide noise just for some of that humanistic feel. So let's take a look at the actual pattern. Now, what's important is adding some of these ghost notes. So you might see them here, and these notes without them. So incorporating these little ghost notes here in the bass line that goes a long way in creating more of that humanistic and adding life to the overall groove, as well as not having all the notes dead on the grid. And so you can see this note's a little bit of ahead, this one's behind, this one's ahead. So when you can, I played this by hand. But if you're drawing in the notes, you want to go in there and make sure that you're nudging some of these notes off grid, and that gives more of that humanistic pocket. And then what I do is I'll add some of these little ghost notes here. So I'll activate that by hitting the 0 key on my computer keyboard, but I'll make sure that the velocity is all the way down. So it's more felt than heard. You can see it right there. So I'll bring it up a little bit more. When the velocity is too strong, it's too evident and doesn't add the same vibe as if the velocity was softer. Big difference. And I'll go ahead and activate this one as well. And I might need just to bring this up a little bit. There you go. So now I've got a Ableton Live pedal plugin right on that just to add a little bit of distortion. And then using the over-the-top compressor, the multi-band dynamic compressor preset, the OTT preset in Ableton Live. And the reason why, this is going to squeeze some of that mid-range that we're hearing a lot of the crunch being added from the distortion. And then I'm using the compressor here, more of a sidechain to add some more of that shuffle and that bounce. So I need to go ahead and tell this to get sidechain from the drums, drum rack, and let's go ahead and get it from the kick. Now I don't want too much because then it'll take away from the initial transits or just the initial punch from the actual bass line as well. So not too much, not as much as I would do on that I've done on the drums. Then I'm using a filter here or just a one band EQ to just take away some of the high end. And what you can do is use that filter to kind of go up and down to create some cool texture in the sonics of it. So I'll use the LFO here. So that it's just moving up and down, and it's just kind of the filter's just opening up a little bit. So I've gone and duplicated the bass part as well as the instrument and the way the instrument settings was. And I'm just putting an EQ to take away all the low end. So we're gonna have the top bass handle all the low end. And this one is just really gonna focus on the mid range. And we're gonna place an overdrive plugin. And another OTT to squeeze some of that mid range. And then this is going to have a chorus plugin on there. And we're going to automate that chorus to go a little bit more wet on certain parts here. So, all right, so I'll copy this same automation over to the first half as well. And then sidechain compression. Also need to go to the drum rack, post kick mixer. And then here we have the filter. Now, the first bass had the filter on a low pass. This is the opposite, the high pass. And then we'll put the EQ8. And then I'm using a limiter just to give overall just some more gain from this. And I'm going to layer these together. See what it sounds like with everybody so far. All right, next I want to focus in on those cool stabs that we also hear accenting the bass note. So for this, I'm going to be using Ableton Live's Wavetable plugin. Any two or more oscillator synth that you might have in your DAW, you can easily get the same results. So I want the first oscillator to go to a sawtooth, and we're going to enable our second oscillator, and that's going to stay at our sine wave. So let's take a listen to the chords. Now, what we want to do is create that whoop, whoop, right? The nice little envelope. And so that's going to require us to do some tweaking with the frequency cutoff here and the envelope 2, which will respond to that. So let's go ahead and bring the frequency cutoff all the way down and head over to the matrix and assign the frequency cutoff to envelope 2. Say real drastic, like around here. Now, under envelope 2, let's go ahead and just shape this tone, shape the overall tone of this envelope. And then what we can do is just bring the release down of the amp envelope, as well as the amp as well. Slow this down. And I'm going to just balance this out a little bit. So bring the sawtooth down in the mix. A little bit of resonance. And now let's widen the sound up with using our unison, heading over to the shimmer. Might need to just bring this is just you're gonna tweak and toy around with the settings in the envelope till you get it right where you like it. That's cool there. And then what I'll do is add a little bit of chorus right after that. Even though we have the unison, adding some extra chorus will help just even widening this up a little bit more. And then let's create some space, put a reverb directly onto this. And let's add our maybe an EQ8 after that. Let's see what it needs as we listen to the stabs with everybody else. So it looks like the attack is just a little bit, could come on a little bit stronger. It's lagging behind a little bit, so I'll adjust that. And I'll do the same thing there and maybe just adjust this. And then add some filter drive. And next, I'm just going to add a nice guitar chord there. So I'm using the Electric Sunburst by Native Instruments, but I'm using the Melody Edition so that I can just actually just play the actual chord without it doing any type of strumming. So this is what we have. And with some effect processing, just filter it out a little bit, adding some delay and some chorus and space with the reverb and some auto panning so we feel it shifting from left to right. All right, now let's create a mysterious pad that can add some atmosphere, and those are really good elements to help kind of glue everything together. So I'll use the Ableton Live wavetable once again, and I want it to be bright but yet like mysterious, right? So a little ethereal and dark in a sense. So bright means that we'll head over with our sawtooth. So oscillator 1 will be the sawtooth, enable oscillator 2, sawtooth. And let's check out, I'm probably using the same chords. Those are really bright. So let's go ahead and take the frequency down. And let's also use our second filter to take some of the low end of frequency out. So we've got the first filter set to a low pass, only letting the lows pass. And then our second filter is going to be set to the high pass, only letting the highs pass. Now, oscillator 2, let's go ahead and set that a whole octave lower, so 12 semitones down. And then let's detune it slightly. That gives a nice chorusy type of vibe. And let's turn our sub oscillator on. And we can adjust our amp envelope so it doesn't have a harsh attack or an immediate attack. And just let's extend the release a little bit. And our unison is going to be a real big help here, but we're going to choose noise. And adding a little bit of chorus right after that to help wind this up a little bit more. And then what I want to do is filter that out. This will darken this up. And then let's run a reverb right after that. And then I also want to incorporate a little bit of auto panning as well, similar to what we did with the guitar. So just a little bit of that, so there's just some movement from left to right. And I can modulate this filter to open. So I'll do that with the LFO here. And with a little bit of movement, and then sending a little bit to my return track B that has some EQ and a room reverb, and a little bit of A, which is a echo delay. Should give us a nice little result here. Let's see what it sounds like with everybody else. Well, thank you so much for your time and for watching this video. As my gift to you for watching this video, I'd love to send you this session so that you can rewatch the video, walk through every step, and you would get the project files and the stems. I'm also going to include the stems in this folder. So if you're not using Ableton Live, you can still follow along with some of the sounds that we've used. You can locate these files by clicking the link below in the description box. Or if you already are a Beat Academy member, no need to do that. I'm going to be emailing you this session directly into your inbox. So be sure to be on the lookout for that. But you can visit beatacademy.com/pack to download this, as well as other breakdown video files and projects that I've done on this channel. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Thank you so much for visiting. Please be sure to subscribe and hit the like button so that you can stay up to date with upcoming videos. And every now and then I'll be doing live beat creations, making beats on the spot, and really just listening in to you and answering some of the questions you might be having. So in order to stay up to date for that, you got to like and subscribe so the algorithm keeps me in your radar. Well, thanks for watching once again, and I'll see you next time.